HOA allowed members to use my garage as storage, so I held an auction and sold everything inside. Picture walking up to your own house, just like any other day, maybe with a coffee in your hand, thinking about what you're going to work on next. But then you stop. Right there on your garage door is this huge bright sign. It's not taped up with care or made to look official. It's some bright poster board, slapped on crooked, with Comic Sans letters that read, "Community Storage, Permission Granted." At first, I thought it was a prank. I looked around, waiting, to see a neighbor pop out and laugh. But no one came. Just birds chirping and the wind blowing through the trees. That garage, my garage, was never just a place to park cars. It was the heart of everything I did. I'm 35 years old, and I restore old furniture. Real pieces of history. That garage was where I worked, created, made money, and found peace. I live just outside Tucson, Arizona, in this quiet little neighborhood that always seemed picture-perfect. Tree-lined streets, fresh-cut grass, people waving when they walked by with their dogs. It wasn't fancy, but it was calm. So you can imagine how it felt to see that sign on my garage like it didn't even belong to me anymore. Like someone had just taken a part of my life without even bothering to ask. No knock on my door, no phone call, no community vote, just a cheap sign acting like it had power. I stood there frozen for a moment, reading it again and again. Community storage. What does that even mean? Who gave permission? Certainly not me. That's when I felt something heavy in my chest. Not just anger, confusion. Who would do this? It didn't take long to figure it out. See, we have a neighborhood association, but it's not like some big organization. It's just a few people who plan block parties and holiday decorations. They barely meet more than once or twice a year, but there was one person who always acted like she ran the show. Lorraine. Lorraine Baxter was the self-declared queen of the neighborhood. You know the type. Clipboard always in hand, always in charge of something no one asked her to be in charge of. If something happened on the block, she was usually behind it or already taking credit. Still deciding that my garage, my personal property, was now public space. That was a new level. Looked at the sign again, and the more I stared, the more ridiculous it became. It wasn't even laminated, just glued up paper with this air of fake authority. No official logo, no signature, just this bold message like it had been approved by the president of the universe. And yet, there it was, just sitting on my garage, announcing to everyone that they could use my space. I opened the garage slowly, almost afraid of what I'd find inside. Everything was still there. My antique lamp from the 1920s. The oak dining table I'd been restoring for weeks. Boxes of fabric, wood stains, delicate hardware all lined up just how I left them. For now. But that sign meant something. It meant someone believed they had the right to claim my space. And if they could put up a sign, they could walk right in. The worst part? I had no idea who else saw it already. How many people believed Lorraine's fake rules? How many thought my garage was now just a free-for-all storage unit? I took the sign down, but I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. It felt like someone had come into my home and tried to rearrange my life without even knocking. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about storage. This was about control. I sat in my driveway that evening, the sun going down, thinking about what to do next. I could ignore it, pretend it would go away, hope that people saw through Lorraine's nonsense. But deep down, I already knew this was going to get worse before it got better. And I wasn't just protecting my stuff. I was protecting my name, my work, and everything I'd built in that garage. So, yeah, I took down that sign. But that was only the beginning, because what Lorraine didn't know was that I don't give up my space that easy. After I took down the sign, I tried to move on. I told myself maybe it was just Lorraine acting out again, one of her weird ideas that would fade like all the others. But something about it stayed in the back of my mind. That feeling you get when the room is too quiet, like a storm is about to roll in. And just a few days later, it did. I got an email. Not from Lorraine directly, of course. She loved to act official, but from the HOA's generic address. The subject line read, "Emergency Neighborhood Meeting. Attendance. Required." That was strange. In 3 years of living here, I'd been to maybe 2 meetings. And they were about stuff like when to put up Halloween decorations or what brand of mulch the entrance flower beds needed. Emergency? For what? The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday night at the community center. Same building where they host Zumba classes and rent out folding chairs. I showed up expecting a full room, neighbors with clipboards, maybe even people fired up about stolen space. But when I walked in, I froze again. The room was practically empty. 4 people. Just me, Lorraine, of course, Carl Jenkins, who looked like he regretted being born that day, and Mrs. Evelyn Ramsey, the retired teacher who used to run the HOA years ago. She sat near the window with her arms folded, watching everything like a hawk. Lorraine stood in front like she was running for mayor. She had a clipboard, of course, wore a wrinkled beige jacket like she was trying to look professional, and smiled way too big. It was the kind of smile you see on someone who already decided what's happening, and now they're just pretending to ask for opinions. "Thank you for showing up," she said, like we were 50 people instead of 4. "This is a very important conversation about underutilized community space." Underutilized? That's how she described my garage. She clicked a pen and started reading off a list. Not a legal document, not even typed, just scribbled bullet points like garage usage redistribution, community needs, and something actually labeled emergency pumpkin storage planning. I sat there, stunned. When I asked why this was even being discussed, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because your garage isn't being used efficiently, Mr. Hartman." Hartman. She couldn't even say my name right. I told her straight, I run a business out of that garage. I restore old furniture. Thousands of dollars of materials and equipment were inside. Some of it fragile, some antique, none of it replaceable. She waved her hand like she was brushing off a fly. Neighborhood resources are more important than personal hobbies. That wasn't a hobby. That was my job, my livelihood. I turned to Carl, hoping for some backup. But he just looked at the floor, wouldn't make eye contact. Lorraine announced that Carl had seconded the motion, as if this was an official vote. Mrs. Evelyn finally spoke up. Her voice was calm, but sharp. "Lorraine, where's the actual vote count? Where are the signatures?" Lorraine said she and Carl were enough to represent the whole community because of emergency protocol. Evelyn just raised an eyebrow. Would have been funny if it wasn't so insane. Then, right in the middle of Lorraine trying to explain something about HOA storage bylaws, her phone went off. Loud, cheesy 90s pop music blaring out of her purse. She scrambled to shut it off, and the illusion of control cracked right there. I left the meeting feeling frustrated and weirdly unsure. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it would blow over. Spoiler, it didn't. Because when I got home that night, the sign was back. This time it was laminated. Same message, different font, still ridiculous. Community storage access by HOA order. It wasn't taped. It was nailed into my garage door. That's when something in me snapped, not in an angry, explosive way. Quiet, cold, determined. I stood there staring at that sign until the sun went down. The next morning, it got worse. I walked out in my slippers, ready to check on the garage, and there was Carl, standing in my driveway, wearing a pajama robe and dragging a giant inflatable snowman across the gravel. He looked at me, clearly uncomfortable. Lorraine said it was okay if I stored this in. Here, he said, already halfway to the garage. He was embarrassed. I could see it. He didn't want to be doing this. I helped him roll the snowman back into his truck. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just explained that Lorraine lied. He mumbled an apology and drove off fast. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, because 2 hours later, Lorraine showed up again, this time with her version of an inspection team. Brenda Walsh, who always agreed with her no matter what, and poor Mrs. Peterson, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. They were there to do a safety check for shared storage compliance. That's what Lorraine called it, but all she really did was walk around my workshop like she owned the place, pointing at things she claimed were fire hazards or poorly organized. And then, she knocked over my 1920s Art Deco lamp, a piece I had spent months restoring. $800 gone in 1 second. She just stood there and said, "Oh dear, dangerous clutter." And that's when I knew for sure. This wasn't about space, this was about power, and she had just declared war. After Lorraine knocked over my antique lamp and just stood there pretending like I was the problem, I didn't say a word. Not one. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her to leave. I just looked at the broken pieces on the floor. Tiny fragments of a lamp that had survived 100 years. Glass that had once lit up a grand hallway in the 1920s. And now? Just glittering trash at my feet because someone wanted to play HOA dictator. Brenda, of course, kept recording everything on her phone like it was some kind of inspection report. She mumbled things like, "documenting unsafe items," and zoomed in on the mess they had just created. Mrs. Peterson was already near the door. She didn't say a word, but her eyes said everything. She looked sorry. She looked uncomfortable. She looked like she knew this wasn't right. When they finally left, Lorraine smiled on her way out like she'd just delivered a pie. "This is for the good of the neighborhood," she said in this fake sweet voice. "We'll be in touch." The door closed, and the second I heard the latch click, I let out this deep, shaky breath I didn't even know I was holding. I stood there in silence, staring at the broken lamp, the scuffed table leg she had bumped with her giant handbag, the open boxes she poked through. I should have been angry, furious even. But what I felt in that moment wasn't fire. It was, as I realized something very important that day, Lorraine wasn't going to stop. This wasn't about storing one snowman or rearranging community space. This was about control. She didn't want my garage. She wanted to own the idea that she could take it, and she was willing to push it as far as she could go. That night, Evelyn knocked on my door. She brought cookies in a tin, which was the most neighborly thing someone had done for me in weeks. She didn't stay long, but her visit left a mark. She sat on my porch swing and said something that stuck with me. People like Lorraine don't like rules. They like bending them until no one remembers what they were. I asked her what she meant. "She doesn't win because she's right. She wins because people are too tired to fight her," Evelyn said. "But if you document everything, if you stay calm and show proof, people eventually wake up." She stood, patted my shoulder gently, and added, "You're not alone in this, Ethan, but don't expect her to play fair." After that talk, something clicked inside me. I stopped reacting emotionally and started acting strategically. That very night, I ordered 4 high-quality security cameras, installed them myself. 2 pointed directly at the garage, inside and out. 1 covered my front yard. The last one, hidden in the rafters of the workshop, not because I thought someone would rob me, but because I knew they already had. I just hadn't caught them yet. I also started a notebook. I called it GarageGate. Each page filled with everything: dates, times, who came by, what was said, what was moved. I even printed screenshots from my camera footage, and that's when things got worse. but also clearer. In the following week, I started noticing odd things. A cabinet door I knew I had shut, now wide open. A heavy wooden chair that had been facing east, now turned west. Dusty footprints on my concrete floor that didn't match my shoes. At first, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, I checked the camera footage. And there she was. Lorraine. Not just during the day, not with permission, but sneaking into my garage between 11:30 at night and 1 in the morning. Quiet, deliberate, phone in hand. Taking pictures, opening drawers, inspecting other people's stuff that had already been left behind. It wasn't just about my belongings anymore. She was using my garage like a showroom, sizing up what she could sell. The worst part? She wasn't doing it for community. She wasn't even storing her own things. She was stealing. I cross-referenced the dates from the footage with listings I found online, on local resale apps, Facebook Marketplace, garage sale groups, same dresser, same tools, same descriptions, even. Worse? They were listed under my name. Photos of items in my garage, listings written like I was the seller. One guy even showed up to my door asking about the vintage buffet cabinet Ethan was selling for $175. He even showed me the ad. My name, my profile picture, which had been stolen from my business website, my address, my job info, all faked. Lorraine had created a fake profile using my identity and was selling stolen goods from my garage as if I was running a secret resale business. I didn't even feel angry in that moment. I felt hollow, violated. It's one thing to take someone's space. It's another to take their name and reputation. I knew what I had to do. I logged into our neighborhood online forum and posted one of the camera clips. The caption said everything. Community storage scam. Proof inside. Within an hour, the post had 30 comments. Within 3, it had over 100. Some people defended her at first, but then more started sharing their own stories, and the tide began to turn. Lorraine had picked the wrong garage, and the wrong guy. The video post didn't go viral in the way people dream about. No trending hashtags or flashing headlines. But in our quiet little neighborhood, it was like setting off fireworks in the middle of church service. It started slow. A few curious comments. Wait, is that your garage? Is that Lorraine in the video? Then someone asked, what exactly are we looking at? So I explained, carefully, politely. I told them what Lorraine had been doing late, at night. I explained how she had taken over my garage without permission, how she brought people in, how she listed neighbors' belongings for sale using a fake profile under my name. I shared screenshots of the listings, matched them with time-stamped footage from the security cameras. The images were undeniable. Carl's tool set, Mrs. Peterson's antique dresser. All photographed, listed, and sold the day after Lorraine visited. The tone in the comments shifted. Fast. One neighbor, Greg, wrote, Lorraine pressured my wife into letting her store our side table in that garage. She said it was part of a community beautification plan. We haven't seen it since. Someone else posted, she told us Evelyn approved this program. Evelyn told us last week she stepped down years ago. It was like everyone had been holding their breath. And suddenly they started to speak. I didn't have to say much more. People were telling the story for me, stories I didn't even know about. Quiet little manipulations, shady favors, fear-driven agreements. And then Carl finally spoke up. Carl, who had once stood by Lorraine at that fake meeting, wrote a comment that shut everything down. I didn't know what she was really doing. She told me this was approved, that Ethan agreed, that she was helping people save space. I trusted her. I'm so sorry. I was scared to speak up because she made it feel like if I didn't support her, I'd be the next target. That was the crack that split the dam. More people posted about how Lorraine guilt-tripped them, used community rules that didn't exist, sent long passive-aggressive messages about non-compliance, or gave verbal warnings that had no legal basis. Some said she tried to charge them mystery fees for garage shelf use. One woman wrote that Lorraine tried to get her to donate items for a charity auction that never happened. And then Evelyn finally stepped in. Her comment was clear, calm, and sharp like a blade. Lorraine was never given legal power to enforce any rules. The HOA is voluntary, and garage space is personal property. She was removed from her admin position 2 years ago. She's been operating with no oversight since. Silence followed. Then likes. Then agreement. Lorraine tried to post a response. Of course she did. It was long, in all caps, full of spelling errors, accusations, and rambling sentences. She called me a liar, called Evelyn a bitter old woman. She used phrases like community betrayal and illegal video spying. She claimed the footage was edited with AI and that I had hired actors. Only 2 people liked her post, Brenda Walsh and someone with a fake-looking username that had no profile picture. But the rest of the thread? It lit up. One neighbor replied, "Is February 30th also when you invented time travel?" Another said, "Can we store her ego in Ethan's garage next?" Even Mrs. Peterson, who rarely spoke online, commented quietly, "Lorraine took my grandmother's dresser and told me she was just cleaning it." I believed her. Thank you, Ethan, for speaking up. The next morning, someone dropped off a small card in my mailbox. No return address. On the front, it just said, "Thank you for protecting the truth." Inside was a $10 gift card to the local coffee shop. No name, just quiet support. I didn't smile. Not yet. But something settled in me. A shift. The more I looked at the comments and messages, the clearer it became. Lorraine had never built power. She had just counted on silence. When people are afraid, they go quiet. When someone finally speaks up and backs it up with facts, with proof, it's like switching on a light in a room where everyone had been too afraid to look around. So I kept documenting. I backed up all the videos, made extra copies. I created a shared folder where neighbors could upload their own footage or screenshots. We built a quiet little archive of every lie, every theft, every twist of words she had used to turn community into control. I sent private messages to everyone I knew who had left items in my garage. People who had believed Lorraine's fake approval. I was careful with my words. I didn't accuse. I just told them I had security footage, and if they wanted their things back, now was the time. Most responded quickly. They came by, retrieved their belongings. Some looked embarrassed. Some just grateful. A few even brought cookies or gift cards as quiet apologies. But some? They hesitated, afraid Lorraine would retaliate. So I made it clear. I told them I'd written everything down, that I'd filed a preliminary report with the police, that I had spoken to a property attorney, that I wasn't doing this to be dramatic. I was doing it to protect my name, because Lorraine had not only taken my space, she had tried to be me. Sold items under my name, collected payments into fake accounts using my business brand. And once you cross that line, it's not community drama anymore. It's identity theft. The police officer I spoke to didn't even try to hide his shock. "She really thought this would work?" he said, looking over the printed screenshots and video stills. "People like this usually fold the moment you shine a light on them," he added. "But she's bold, not smart, just bold." He was right, because Lorraine wasn't done yet. And neither was I. It's funny how quickly people change sides once the truth comes out. Not because they're fake, but because they were waiting for a reason, waiting for someone to step forward first. Once the video was out and the evidence was plain as daylight, people started remembering things. Little things. Moments. They'd brushed off as Lorraine being Lorraine. Now, those moments felt darker. There was this couple across the street, James and Lila. They'd always seemed distant. Turned out, Lorraine had once warned them not to install a new mailbox because it violated community visual flow. That wasn't real. She just didn't like that it was blue. Another neighbor posted about how Lorraine strongly encouraged them to donate to a neighborhood pool fund, even though we don't have a pool. No one ever saw where the money went. The more stories poured in, the clearer it became. This had never just been about my garage. Lorraine had built her power, like a house of mirrors. A little intimidation here, some confusion there, a fake rule thrown in just often enough to seem believable. And because no one questioned her, she kept building. But now? The whole thing was cracking. She tried to fight back, of course. She always did. One morning, a long-winded letter showed up taped to every front door on my street. It was written in blue marker, as if she'd run out of printer ink. The header said, "Important, the truth about the community storage program." Underneath were 3 pages of handwritten rants. She claimed I was running an underground storage rental scam, that I had manipulated security footage, that I had weaponized neighborly trust to stage a smear campaign. There were misspelled words on almost every line. She even accused Evelyn of holding a secret grudge against her because Lorraine once beat her in a pumpkin carving contest back in 2018. I wish I were joking. Some people took photos of the letter and posted them online with the caption, "Lorraine's Manifesto, Volume 1, and that's when things really turned, because instead of defending herself with calm facts, Lorraine responded with meltdowns. She wrote angry posts filled with exclamation marks and emojis, claimed shadow networks were working against her, told people she was being targeted as a single woman in leadership. The more she talked, the more she gave herself away. Then came her biggest mistake, trying to take me down legally. She filed a complaint with the city, claiming I was running an unlicensed business out of my garage and operating an unauthorized storage facility. A city inspector actually came by. His name was Lucas, nice guy, mid-40s, very by the book. He walked in, looked around, saw the neat rows of antique furniture, the labeled tools, the workshop station, and said, "Looks like you're just working in your own garage." I nodded. Then I showed him the laminated poster Lorraine had nailed to the door, the one declaring it community storage weeks ago. He raised an eyebrow. "She filed a complaint against you, but she's the one who labeled it community." "Property?" I nodded again. Lucas laughed. "Well, that's a first. He didn't find anything wrong. In fact, he quietly hinted that I could probably file something against Lorraine. Impersonation, misuse of HOA name, maybe even small claims. But I told him I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in resolution. That made more of an impact than I realized. People started seeing me differently, not just as the guy with the cool workshop, but as someone who stood up and didn't stoop low to do it. Then Evelyn, bless her steady heart, hosted a public coffee meeting on her lawn. She called it a community reset. She set out foldable chairs, big thermoses of coffee, cinnamon rolls. No drama, just conversation. More people showed up than I expected. People who never came to HOA meetings before. People who wanted answers and healing. Evelyn stood at the front and said, "What happened here wasn't just about one garage. It was about letting fear and confusion replace honesty. But we can change that. With real votes, with open records, with respect." People clapped. Some cheered. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Someone asked what we were going to do about Lorraine. Evelyn paused. "We're not chasing anyone out, but we're not ignoring what she did either. The best way to fix this is by doing better than she did. Transparent meetings, real rules, and actual accountability." We formed a new HOA committee, voted in right then and there. Evelyn was made chair. I was asked to join too. I said yes, not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to make sure no one else went through what I did. And Lorraine? She tried to post one more time on the forum, a long, bitter rant about conspiracies and how people had turned against her for no reason. She posted it at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. When I woke up and checked the thread, it had been reported so many times the admin took it down before breakfast. That same morning, I sent out certified letters to every single person who had items still sitting in my garage. The message was clear and calm. According to local regulations, unclaimed items will be considered abandoned and auctioned within 30 days. If you believe any item is yours, please contact me by this date to retrieve it. No questions asked. Made sure it wasn't personal. I wasn't taking revenge. I was closing a chapter. People responded quickly. Carl came by the same afternoon, thanked me again, and picked up his tools. Mrs. Peterson showed up with her granddaughter and carefully lifted her mother's old dresser back into her car. But Lorraine? She didn't say a word. All that remained in my garage were the things she left behind: a fake fur jacket, a half-used box of vintage stickers, and a few dusty wine glasses still tagged for sale. A week later, someone posted a screenshot of a new listing Lorraine made online, trying to sell one of the same items for the 4th time, this time under a new alias: Lorraine B. Treasures. No one even commented. They just let her fade into the silence. Because when someone's been exposed enough times, they don't need punishment. They disappear under the weight of their own actions. I never wanted to be the guy who held an auction out of spite. That wasn't the point. From the beginning, I just wanted to work in peace. Fix old things. Mind my business. Let my garage be my garage. But now it had become something bigger. Lorraine had left behind more than just boxes and clutter. She'd left behind a broken sense of trust. And in a strange way, I felt like that garage had become a symbol of everything. The neighborhood had let slide for too long. So when the 30-day deadline for unclaimed property approached, I made a decision. I would hold a public auction, not in secret, not online, right there in my driveway, under the Arizona sun. No mystery, no lies, but I wasn't going to profit from it. That would have made me no better than Lorraine. Instead, I partnered with a local food bank just a few blocks away. Everything we earned would go directly to families who needed help. I sent out a flyer. Garage auction for good. All proceeds. Go to feed our neighbors. People loved it, not just because of the cause, but because, let's be honest, drama draws a crowd. And this one had all the pieces: a scandal, a fall from power, and a redemption arc with snacks and folding chairs. I hired a local auctioneer named Dean, big guy with suspenders and a voice that could carry across a football field. He brought his own table, a portable mic, and a clipboard thicker than a church hymnal. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked as we set up the night before. "I'm sure," I said, "but I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for everyone else." The morning of the auction, I woke up early. My stomach buzzed with nerves. Not fear exactly, just the kind of tight feeling you get before something big. I brewed coffee, dusted off the remaining items, and set up a donation box. By 9 a.m., people started arriving. Not just neighbors, strangers too. Folks from nearby blocks, a few local bloggers, even someone live streaming it on their phone with the caption, "HOA Garage Showdown, Auction Day." The energy was strange but exciting. Chairs lined the sidewalk. Kids ran around with lemonade cups. Someone brought donuts. It was festive. Then, of course, she showed up. Lorraine, hair messy, a wrinkled floral dress, clutching a big manila envelope like it was her last shield. She didn't speak to anyone. Just marched right up to Dean and waved the envelope in his face. "These are my receipts," she declared. "You can't sell my stuff." Dean blinked. "Ma'am, this event is fully permitted. Notices were sent. Deadline passed." "These are dated receipts," she snapped. He opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. immediately furrowing his brow. February 30th, 2023, he read out loud. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. June 31st, he read again. From Vintage Treasure. Vault? Someone near the back called out. That's not even a real store. Lorraine's face flushed deep red. She started pointing fingers, yelling about conspiracies, discrimination, sabotage. But no one shouted back. No one engaged. We'd learned. Silence was more powerful. She stormed off to the side and watched the rest of the auction from a distance, muttering under her breath, her fake receipts still fluttering in her hand. Dean tapped the mic. All right, folks, let's begin. All proceeds go to a great cause, and as a bonus, you get a piece of local history, whether you want it or not. Laughter again, and so it began. Mrs. Peterson bought back her own dresser. She gave me a quiet look of thanks that said more than words ever could. Carl picked up his garden tools and joked, at least now they've been properly appraised. He even paid more than they were worth, just to support the fundraiser. Someone paid $200 for a vintage mirror Lorraine had tried to sell for months online with no success. Another guy bought a box of random mugs for $30 just to say he was part of the story. Every item went. Even the box labeled holiday decor, Lorraine's eyes only. At the end of it all, Dean tallied the earnings. We had raised $2,047.35 for the food bank. No one clapped. They cheered. Loud. Joyful. Not for me. Not even for the money. They were cheering for closure. Lorraine, meanwhile, tried one last act. She approached the food bank rep and accused us of laundering money through garage propaganda. The rep blinked slowly, said, "Ma'am, we feed kids," and walked away. No one paid attention to Lorraine after that. Not in a cruel way. More like she became background noise. That's how power slips. Not with a bang, but with indifference. I donated the last few unsold trinkets to a secondhand store and packed up the garage that evening. For the first time in months, the space felt still. Not tense. Not invaded. Just mine. Evelyn stopped by with a mason jar of sweet tea and said something simple. That wasn't just an auction. That was a funeral. We buried the fear. I nodded. She was right. And the funny thing? That single day sparked something bigger. A month later, we hosted a neighborhood potluck in the same driveway. Then, someone suggested we make the auction an annual tradition. Only now, it was called the Community Revival Sale. We raised money for different causes each year. Kids painted signs. Families brought cookies. People who had never spoken before were now exchanging recipes and laughing under string lights. And Lorraine? She moved out quietly 2 weeks after the auction. A moving truck arrived early one morning. She didn't say goodbye. No one asked. The house sold to a young couple with a dog named Baxter, which felt like poetic justice. We don't mention her much anymore, not because we forgot, but because we learned. She taught us that fear only works when you let it grow in silence. But truth? Truth gets louder when shared. And sometimes the best way to fix a broken space is to open it up. Not for everyone to take, but for everyone to heal. 3 years have passed since the auction. You'd think it would all fade into the background, like some strange season of neighborhood drama everyone moved on from. But it didn't disappear. It changed us. I still remember the way the air felt after that auction ended. That heavy tension. Gone. The weight of Lorraine's control, the fear of being watched or manipulated, it vanished. It wasn't a celebration that night. It was something quieter, more sacred. We had taken back something that didn't belong to her. Not the garage, not the stuff, but our voices. People started walking slower through the streets again. Not because they had nowhere to be, but because they weren't avoiding each other anymore. Conversations came easier. Laughter, too. The garage my garage is now exactly what it was always meant to be. Not just a place where I restore vintage furniture, but a place where I can think, breathe, and build. It smells like sawdust and lemon oil again. The tools are lined up just how I like them. The same oak table that once sat under that awful community storage sign is now fully restored, hand-polished, sturdy, and beautiful. A small brass plate is attached to one corner. It reads, "Restored with resistance. Auction day, a new beginning." It reminds me of everything that happened, but also what came after. The HOA didn't dissolve. It didn't fall apart like some people feared. It actually became real. Evelyn stayed on as chair, but only after making sure the new charter was transparent and community-led. We created a rotating leadership schedule, open voting, public documentation of all decisions. The kind of system where no one, not even the nicest person in the world, could claim unchecked power again. We added new things too, monthly porch potlucks, Saturday morning cleanup walks. We started a neighborhood repair circle. People help fix each other's appliances, fences, bikes, no paperwork, just kindness. I volunteered to host the garage auction every year. It's now a community tradition. We call it the Clean Start Sale. Every spring, families bring unused stuff, and we raise money for local causes, the food bank, animal shelters, even a school art program. Last year, we raised over $6,000. People still joke about the Great Garage War, but only in that half-laughing way where you know it meant more than just a story. They remember how close we came to letting one person divide us, and how powerful it was to come back together. Lorraine? She's gone. Not just from the neighborhood, but from all the conversations that used to revolve around her. She moved out weeks after the auction. No goodbye, no apology. Just a moving truck and silence. There were rumors she tried something similar in another neighborhood across town. It didn't last long. Word travels. People are quicker now to question authority that arrives without invitation. But here's the truth. I don't hate her. I really don't. Somewhere deep down, I think Lorraine believed she was creating structure, control in a world that scared her. She chose manipulation instead of community, power instead of partnership. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it helps me sleep at night, knowing that I didn't become like her to beat her, because I didn't win with anger. I won with evidence, with calm, with truth, and that's a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. Sometimes justice doesn't come with handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes it looks like a broken lamp being swept up in silence, a sign being taken down without a word, a camera quietly recording the truth. Sometimes justice is a community finally standing up, not to punish someone, but to protect each other. One of the neighbors, a guy named Theo who used to keep to himself, said something to me after the second annual garage auction. We were folding up chairs as the sun was setting. He looked around at the laughter. The kids running barefoot in the grass, the tables full of homemade cookies and lemonade. He said, "You know, I think what you did saved more than just your garage. I think you reminded all of us what it means to speak up." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and kept folding chairs. Because that's the thing about change. It doesn't always announce itself with loud music or flashing signs. Sometimes it's in the quiet, steady work of showing up, of choosing truth over and over, even when your hands are shaking. And now, when I open that garage door every morning, it doesn't just feel like home, it feels like a promise that this space and this neighborhood belongs to people who care, people who show up, people who believe that one voice, backed by courage, can change everything. And to anyone watching this, maybe you've never faced someone like Lorraine. Or maybe you're facing one right now, a person who twists the rules, makes you doubt your own ground, tries to control through confusion and fear. Let me say this. You are not powerless. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And the moment you choose to stop staying quiet, everything starts to shift. I didn't plan for this fight. I didn't want it, but I'm grateful for it. Because now, this garage isn't just my workshop. It's where a neighborhood found its backbone. It's where silence ended, and it's where something better began.